Hey everyone, it's Aesah, and welcome to my video on Swain positioning. Swain is a big 4-cost area effect tank in this set. This is similar to Mighty Mech strategist Jarvan from last set, or Exotech Sejuani from the set before then. So, in my opinion, Swain is the single most important unit in the entire set to position around, and he's a little bit different from both of those other units. So, he has a 3-hex area effect. Let's read the ability first of all. So he opens an eye on the largest group of nearby enemies, and the eye is a 3-hex radius. However, Swain has a 2-hex cast range, which is very important. So if your opponent is not positioning around Swain, there's a decent chance you can actually hit their carry with just Swain in the middle. Let's just say, for example, our opponent has a carry in the corner and they have a setup kind of like this. This is a pretty basic default positioning that a lot of people might use. So Swain has a 2-hex range, which means he can center his cast anywhere 2 hexes away from him. So it could start here, it could start here, and it has a 3-hex radius, which means basically you would draw 3 hexes in each direction. So let's just say he chooses cast here, 3 hexes, 3 hexes, 3 hexes. So basically, like anything in this thing would be stunned. So you would see that in this setup, it would actually stun all 7 of these units here out of our opponent's 8 total units. I'm not entirely sure what the tiebreaker rules are. I assume it'd just be a 50-50. So if your positioning looks something like this, it'd be a 50-50 whether it's stun these 7 units or whether it's stun these 7 units. If Swain centers his eye here. So if we do want to stun a very specific unit, I think the best thing we can do is have Swain on the same side as that unit. So let's say I want to stun this unit. If we start our Swain over here, even if he walks up, oftentimes we're going to have a frontliner. So even if our Swain walks up here, he can only start his cast as far as here, which he wouldn't do because this is not largest clump. 3 hexes, 3 hexes. So basically it would stun this circle, just barely missing this Yunara. However, this would only stun 6 total units, so he just wouldn't cast here. He would always put his eye right here, which would stun all 7 of these units, right? So I think the best positioning for Swain is putting him on the edge, same side as your opponent's carry, in order to specifically target them. It doesn't have to be all the way on the edge. If your Swain starts right here, for example, this is the same thing because you can't hit the enemy carry. Basically, in order to hit the enemy carry, you would have to start exactly in the middle. So I guess even this spot right here would be acceptable. So any of these 3 spots would be fine um, in order to hit this Yunar on the left. Again, if you're not specifically targeting if you're not targeting one matchup's corner, you can just use middle as a default, and there's a pretty high chance you can stun either corner. Um, if you're playing against Swain, the most important thing is just to make sure that your main carry is not the largest clump in 3 hexes. So now that we know how Swain works, one decent way is just to isolate like this. You do have to be a little bit careful because oftentimes, even if it looks isolated, it might not be. So let's just say, for example, your setup is like this, and your opponent has a Swain right here. So now where is our largest clump? Again, our opponent's Swain is can cast 2-hex radius. So if he casts here, this will not stun our carry, right? Because 3 hexes looks like this, so it'll stun all of these units. However, we can see that's still only 5 total units. So this is actually still not safe because if he targets here, this is also 5 units. So this looks like this. So this is not safe, right? Because either way, it's 5 units. It's a 50-50. Even if you have even if you have another unit somewhere down here, that's not going to make a difference because either one of those spots are going to hit. Either one of these spots is going to hit this unit. Even if you have another tank over here, that's not going to make a difference either because neither one of those spots are going to hit that. So a positioning like this, for example, is not safe against Swain. which I think is a little unintuitive because when you just look at your carry, it looks pretty isolated, but it's not. So I think one thing you can do is you have this unit over here. Now the largest clump always will have to target this spot because now again targeting here, 3 hexes. This hits 5 total units, but if you position like this, targeting this will hit 6 total units. So something like this is safe because of this additional Caitlyn will bait the Swain cast over to the left. So that's one thing you can do on this corner. On the other corner, you can just do something very similar. One thing I do want to mention is you cannot do this. The reason is because you can be wrapped directly by a melee unit in this setup. So if your opponent has, let's just say like a Warwick here, again, oftentimes they're going to have a full front line. So their Warwick can actually walk directly down to your carry immediately. So your furthest most tank has to be here. It can't be any further left. But basically, the best way to protect your carry from Swain is kind of have your front line shifted away. If you have your front line over here, now the Swain is very tempted to ult towards your carry. On the other side of the map, you don't need a unit here. The reason is even if your opponent has a full front line like this, the way they'll move, this walks here, and this always walks here 100% of the time. You do have to make sure this unit is pretty strong, because if this unit dies, sometimes what will happen is, let's say this dies, this guy might walk up this way, this guy might walk up this way, and now potentially there's an enemy melee unit on your carry. However, if you just have a very strong tank here with items, this is going to always be safe. Again, this walks here, and this always is targeting the Wukong, so by the time it gets here, I guess Wukong's still closer, so either way, this always goes here 100% of the time. So if you're positioned left side, you can kind of set up your tank line on the right side to bait Swain away from your carry. That's going to wrap it up for this video on Swain positioning and how to position against Swain. Once again, if you're using Swain, I recommend putting him on the same side if you're targeting a specific matchup, but if not, Swain in the middle is generally pretty safe. He can reach both corners, similar to how Jarvan could from last set. If you have any comments or questions, let me know in the Discord, and thanks for watching.